What are you still angry at your parents for? When I got my wisdom teeth out, they wouldn't let me take any of the pain meds. I ended up getting 4 dry sockets, bone exposed to air, and still no pills for me. I received a full ride scholarship to a very good private university out of high school, but my mother insisted that I attend a school closer to where we were being transferred. My dad was in the military at the time. I'm sure you can get just as good a scholarship wherever we go as a justification. Since I was underage at the time and wouldn't turn 18 until after university enrollment, I needed their consent. Suffice it to say that by the time we got our orders to the new area, there were no similar scholarships to be had. Oh, and they weren't planning on paying for my schooling. It was all on me. So I ended up working 3 jobs during school and graduating with about $20k in debt. I cannot forgive my mother for being fiscally irresponsible. In 1991, when she was 40, my mother came into a large chunk of inheritance from my grandmother, hundreds of thousands of dollars. She blew through it by quitting her job, traveling, buying a car for a guy, put it in his name, who dumped her, getting married to a deadbeat husband, supporting him in school and buying lavish toys for him. He cannot hold a job and is a collector of laser discs, among other things. She never bought a house. This was 1991 when a nice house could be had for $150k. Instead, she continued to rent. In 1993, she came into another chunk of inheritance. Her brother died and she got part of his inheritance, and she blew through that, too. My brother was living at home and crashed the only car they had and she never bought another. She had nice jewelry from my grandmother including a diamond solitaire ring valued at $20k which she did not wear, insure or put in a safe deposit box. It, along with the rest of her inherited jewelry, was stolen from her top dresser drawer and she even never put in the effort to write a police report. I suspect my brother. By 1998 she was thoroughly broke again, so she started working again. It was low paying but it was inside and she could sit down. It was stable. She had benefits. I was happy for her. When she was 59, she left her husband, finally, got a new apartment and I thought things were looking up. But then she quit her job, cashed in her pension, and gave some of the money to her deadbeat husband and gave most of it to my brother for his gambling debts. This was in 2011, bottom of the economy, and her thinking was, I'll get another job to tide me over until Social Security kicks in. Nope. Apparently the recession had completely sailed over her head. She went on unemployment, which ran out over a year ago. Since then she has been trying to get temp jobs and is currently working part-time at a home improvement store as a cashier. She was evicted from her apartment recently and had to live in a motel until her deadbeat spouse's Section 8 housing came through. He's been living at a shelter. She ran out of money at the motel and I had to come to the rescue. I'm not mad at her for spending her own money, not one bit, but I am furious with her for not making any kind of investment in her own future. The older I get, the more it seems that the biggest difference between people who end up being financially independent and stable for the majority of their lives and those that don't comes down to money management, even more than income level. There isn't any amount of money that can't be blown through. I hope your mother and you are okay and the leeches have been cut off. My mom signed my truck over when I was 18 and when the title came in, she hid it. She told my stepdad I forged her name and for the next year he was very antagonistic towards me until I found out my mom lied to him. That and my mom being a drug addict. Oh, that reminds me, a family friend gave me my first car. It was a terrible junker, and I drove it for a year or so after I got my license. Then, one day, my brother comes to my room and says, "Oh, by the way, mom and dad gave me your car," and then walked away. I caught my dad cheating and decided to tell my mum. I got physically abused by him because of it. The worst part is, nobody stuck up for me. My mum and my older brothers shouted at me for being disrespectful. Nobody cared that he was an butthole. God, that's awful. I feel like a lot of the stories on this thread are the parents being uneducated or scared, so they just lash the frick out at anyone in reach. It isn't right. Having children when they clearly couldn't cope. Quite a lot of people think that all you need to do is feed your child in order to be a good parent. People forget that you also need to be emotionally stable and develop them internally as well. For trying to cast demons out of me and then locking me inside the room afterwards while I was having a panic attack. I think something should be done about your parents. Not teaching me how to live a healthful life. We didn't ever go out and do things. We didn't eat very healthy. And despite me not being in control of my own diet, my parents always gave me a hard time for being overweight. I'm still bitter I had to become an adult at the age of 10 so I could maintain a household and raise my little sister. That will probably always stick with me, but I guess I wouldn't be who I am now. I didn't have to go through all the bulls growing up. I have two that I'm still pretty pee about. While I was going through depression, I had a breakdown in the car after I got out of the orthodontist office. She looked at me and the only thing she said to me was, "Here we go with this silly crap again," then proceeded to drop me off at school where I was forced to stay in the counselor's office all day. I had just started dating my boyfriend and my mom didn't particularly care for him, which I didn't really care about. So someone brought up prom and she began absolutely trashing him, saying stuff like she's either taking someone else or she's not going with him. I don't want some silly looking kid in my pictures, but they're not going to last till prom anyway, so it doesn't matter and you should have stayed with your ex. I'll be saying I told you so when it's 10 years in the future and you wished you had a great guy. Well mom, we've been dating for 2.5 years, so frick you. That sucks. Sounds like you have a narcissistic mother. Glad you're still with your boyfriend. Telling me if I got good grades in school they would let me play on the soccer team. I got the good grades and they had more than enough money to pay for the fees, but they refused to let me play soccer. Hey, if you put in a ton of effort we'll give you a reward. Kidding. No reward for you. Sounds like a great way to encourage a child to actually put in effort. Forcing me to come out of the closet. Telling me that no one else would ever love me from the age of 5. I still have issues with believing anyone cares about. The majority of people on Reddit care. Thanks for sharing. Being anti-vaccination and anti-medicine. At 16 I suffered from meningitis for a good 4 months before a doctor got involved. Yelled at me when I wanted to eat during most people's dinner time. Dinner time for us was about 9:30 to 10 PM each night because my parents didn't know how to manage time cooking. Told me my friends were pieces of crap. They're the most straight-edged and good people I know because they weren't the same race as us. Kicked me out of my room for a year because my dad's homeless unemployed vagrant cousin needed a place to crash. Mum calling me an ungrateful little crap on a regular basis, then turning right back around a few hours later like I was the most important thing in the world, then going back to the little crap thing. Overall it was just her belittling me most of my life, and then trying to tell me that she had my best interests in mind. Screwed me up emotionally, but most of you guys here seem to have it a lot worse. Yes, this is my mom sadly for you, though it affected you, not a diss. It has made me bitter and incapable of feeling appreciated. Makes me choke up. My dad was an alcoholic butthole who wanted to be the fun parent and the stern one, which just drove me away from him. But what really makes me angry is that through all that my mom was getting treatment for cancer and he was so incredibly selfish through it. Towards the end of her life he was still having fights with her, even when she was in the wheelchair, even when I was in the room. He never really cared about me because even before she died he was asking me who I wanted to live with because the idea of me living with my own father was freaking absurd. When he was supposed to pay child support for me, despite getting every cent in my mother's bank account, he still threatened to take us to court to gain control over her house. We ended up agreeing that he didn't have to pay child support if he didn't try for her house. His name is forever freaking engraved on her headstone because he managed to cough up the money for that even though he waited until the last minutes to chip in. And on top of all that he still makes time to see one of his other families. He still treats my younger half brother like the favorite he always was, and the only downside in his life is that he now looks old. Your dad is indeed an butthole. At least now you know what not to be like. On the other hand, you say ma'am, which is brilliant. Taking me to a doctor who, unbeknownst to me, was going to check the size of penis to see if it's smaller than normal, which would explain why I didn't have any friends, preferring to play with my toys' computer games. Oh my god, penis inspection day is real. Ignoring me and never saying that they were proud of me. It's not as bad as other things, but dang does that hit a kid hard. Your parents are like mine. They never say they're proud of me, doesn't congratulate me when I win a medal, not even on my graduation, never bothers to come into my room when they know I'm crying. It sucks to say that I've gotten used to it. Dying. Frick. The all-around abuse. When the physical stuff wasn't affecting me as hard, the guilt trips started, then the blame. Somehow everything became my fault. Then they lied to the rest of the family about me. Literally my entire family knew nothing of what really happened. According to them, it was my decision to leave. According to them, I didn't want to be a part of that family anymore. Like I can't even type how angry and hurt I am for all of the things they lied about, because just thinking about it is making me shake and have tears in my eyes. The part that hurts the most is that I won't have a father to walk me down the aisle. I loaned my mother a couple grand when I was barely scraping by. Once she had the money to pay me back, she bought furniture. She has never paid it back, and it took a year of eating bread sandwiches and walking to get anywhere to land a decent job and start paying debt. My uncle gave me tickets to see the Blue Angels IMAX movie for my birthday one time. My mom never took me to see it and I had to throw the tickets away. I cried whenever I thought about it for years. My friend had to tell me to use deodorant. Thanks mom and dad for not telling me I stunk. Compared to all of these, I'm not angry at all, but compared to my own problems, they made it very vocal that they would accept me, but with time, a lot of time. But I'm more so angry at myself for not coming out earlier. It would have made my teen life a lot easier. The timing of my dad's death. I'm mad at him for dying, but the timing was downright movie-worthy. Found dead in their bed by my mom the morning after we got back from Christmas, and the day before their anniversary. It's slightly traumatic to have to move all of our newly opened Christmas presents out of the way so that the paramedics could get through. Came here to say something. Saw gay to straight conversion therapy as the top comment. Realized just how far out of my league I was. Thanks, mom. I love you. Yeah, this thread gives me a lot of perspective as well. For beating my mum and subjecting her to constant mental torture for my entire childhood. Dad. For giving me survivor's guilt even to this day, 6+ years after she left you. For making a 10-year-old boy feel like he had to stand up to his violent, lunatic father for the sake of his mother's health, because unlike my younger brothers, I knew what you did and how you fricked her up and ruined her life, and how the holes in the walls didn't come from nowhere. I still struggle to look at you without knowing what you did, and the worst is I feel guilty knowing that a large part of me just wants to forget the past so I can pretend to have a normal history and a normal, loving relationship with you. My dad left when I was 3, then had the nerve to tell my mom she had to send his tax return back to him after he avoided having a real job for 18 years. Freaking white trash hex angel biker. You have been visited by the comfortable garlic bread of good back support. Subscribe to AskReddit in 3 weeks or never sit comfortably again. You have a lot of time for this one. I understand if you're busy, no rush. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.